For How to Read Literature Like a Professor, I had Chapter 8, Hansel and Greteldom. The overview of this chapter is that the average American is unacquainted with colloquial literature. Therefore, many authors have introduced alluding to children's books and fairy tales in order to establish parallelism, allegories, and plot structure that the reader will be more conversant with. Now, at the beginning of the chapter, Foster references something called the literary canon, which is a list of books and other texts that is considered to be important and influential during a certain period of time. Examples of books in the literary canon include To Kill a Mockingbird and plays like Romeo and Juliet. Authors in the past have attempted to use allusions from the literary canon. However, nowadays, most people would not understand. Now, because of this, authors have resorted to using children's literature. Additional chapter information. So why fairy tales and children's books? It's because children's books are common knowledge for a lot of people and they might be extremely familiar to the audience. Would you remember a allusion from Cat in the Hat or from Shakespeare? Allusions to fairy tales are easy and they don't need to be made very complex, and once the reader gets a tiny hint of what the author is trying to do, they will further understand. So authors will use small details in order to build up plot and make references. Some examples from literature that Foster uses include Cat in the Hat, the Narnia novels, and Sleeping Beauty. Some of my own examples from literature include Harry Potter and Charlotte's Web. Foster claims that the average American would not understand references and allusions from famous writers such as Shakespeare and Homer. Some examples from culture include some from TV shows like The Office, where Michael Scott was telling one of his usual stories to his office employees. He was talking about prison and mentioned Dementors, which are from Harry Potter. They're essentially dark creatures that feast on human happiness and cause depression. Now, the scriptwriters most likely included this analogy from a famous children's book so that the audience would have a deeper understanding of what Michael Scott was trying to explain to his employees. Another example from Family Guy is Stewie, the youngest in the family. He's explaining why nothing works out for Brian, and Stewie says that, Brian, you have a very negative attitude, like Eeyore. By making the analogy to Eeyore, the character from Winnie the Pooh, the audience is able to comprehend what Brian's attitude is like, and using a children's book that something everyone knows, the audience will be able to understand. And that's the end of my presentation for Chapter